In ancient Rome, panus focus was a simple flatbread that was baked in the ashes on the hearth translating in Latin to focus. Now, over the years, this simple bread spread and diversified all over Europe into loaves like the Italian focaccia, the Catalonian Fougasse, and last but not least, the French Fougasse, which is what Bridget's going to show us how to make today.
Julia, do you like crust?
Yep.
Yeah, well, this is for you. This bread is really about the ratio of interior crumb to crust. And what it is it's basically a flattish bread, and it's manipulated and shaped so it has all this interior lacing that allows for more crust development.
I'm in.
We're not using all whole wheat flour, but we want enough just to give a little bit of that nuttiness, that wheaty flavor. But we need to sift it through a fine mesh sifter, and that's to get rid of the outer bran, any little bits of that, because that really impedes gluten development. So this is a 1/4 cup or 1 1/3 ounces of whole wheat flour. Just going to quickly sift it in there. Now, the rest of the ingredients go in. This is 3 cups or 15 ounces of all-purpose flour, 1 1/2 teaspoons of table salt, and a teaspoon of instant or rapid rise yeast. Now, this is 1 1/2 cups or 12 ounces of water, so about 75% hydration level is just right. So now this is going to go on low speed just for about 5 to 7 minutes. And what I'm looking for is the dough should come together in a cohesive mass. We shouldn't see any dry pockets. So 5, maybe 7 minutes.
All right.
All right. It's been about 5 minutes. And the dough's looking good. You can see it cleared the sides of the bowl. No little dry pockets of flour. And now I'm going to move this to a bowl. I've gone ahead and oiled this with extra virgin olive oil. We're going to use that later on in the recipe too, so why not here? It's going to prevent the dough from sticking to the bowl. All right, so that looks good. Now I've got a piece of plastic wrap down here. And we are going to let this rest at room temperature for about 30 minutes before we move on to the next step.
Okay. So whole wheat flour adds a nutty, complex flavor to the fougasse, but we're careful not to add more than 1/4 cup. Here's why. White flour is made with just the endosperm of the wheat grain, which contains starch and proteins. And it's these proteins that form gluten when mixed with water and gives the bread its structure. Whole wheat flour is made from the whole grain, the germ, the bran, and the endosperm. Now the germ adds flavor and a minuscule amount of fat, while the bran adds flavor and bulk. But too much bran is a bad thing because it gets in the way of gluten development. The 2 main ingredients in most bread doughs are water and flour. The proteins in the flour need the water in order to find each other inside the dough and to link up into the strong network that we call gluten. Here's how the particles of bran in the whole wheat flour get in the way of that process. Bran absorbs lots of water, essentially stealing it away from the gluten. So with less water available to it, the gluten isn't able to move around freely in the dough and therefore forms fewer links, making a weaker network. The bran particles also physically get in the way and prevent the small gluten links from forming longer chains. Without these longer chains, you can't form a strong gluten network.
All right, it's been a half an hour. The dough is sat here. So now we're going to start manipulating it a little bit and start forming gluten. Now we want a specific interior texture or crumb inside this bread. We want it to be nice and lacy with small holes and larger holes. And you do that by developing the gluten slowly. So in order to do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little corner of the dough and push it towards the middle, then rotate the bowl 45 degrees and do it again. So I'm going to go around here a total of 8 times, just like that. I am going to put the plastic back on. We're going to let this rest for 30 minutes. We're going to repeat this cycle 3 more times. Now after the last fold, we're going to put the plastic on, and this is going to go into the fridge for at least 16 hours up to 2 days or 48 hours in advance.
Okay.
All right, so we went through the 4 stages of dough, resting and then folding 4 times. So Fougasse is known for taking on many different shapes. Some people will do beautiful sand dollars. Some people will turn it into a ladder. We're going to do probably the most traditional shape, which is a leaf. It's beautiful, it's simple, lots of opportunities for crust development. All right, so before I turn this out on my board, I want to flour it. And this is a well-hydrated dough, so we don't have to worry too much about it being over-floured. Let me get this out of the bowl. I'm going to be gentle here. I really don't want to disturb too many of those air bubbles that we've taken the time to develop. Now I am going to get rid of any of these larger bubbles on the outside. That's fine. But what I want to do is kind of pat and pull this out roughly an 8-inch circle. It looks spot on. Now, I'm going to put a little bit of flour on my bench scraper here because I'm going to use it to cut it right in half. We're going to make 2 loaves. And later on, you and I are going to have some fun. This is how we're going to start getting that triangle shape. So I like to think of this as being in 3 parts. See the 3 triangles if I do that? Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's what we're going to do. We're going to bring this towards the center, just like that. Get it so it's attached, and then bring this one up. I'm going to pop that bubble just like that. Just get it into a rough triangle. All right, so that looks good. Now I am going to move this over to a rimmed baking sheet. I want to flour it so it doesn't stick to the sheet. And this is going to go right over there. And now this is going to relax and slump a little bit. All right, so now these are going to go under a sheet of plastic. I went ahead and sprayed this with vegetable oil spray. Cover it loosely. And now we want these to warm up so we can continue to shape them and turn them into the beautiful leaves. So these are going to sit here at room temperature for about 30 minutes or up to an hour, or really until the dough no longer feels cold.
Okay.
All right, so it's been about 30 minutes. The chill is off.
Okay, and they've relaxed quite a bit.
They sure have, as promised. So we're done here with this plastic wrap. Now, I'm gonna have you shape one and me shape one. So I do need to flour our bench here. There you go.
Thank you.
And one for me. So we are going to use a rolling pin to gently coax this out into the right shape. So what we're looking for at the start is this end towards us is 8 inches, and then the 2 longer sides of the triangle are about 10 inches long. So gentle is the game.
There we go. 8 by 10.
All right, you've got a piece of parchment on an overturned baking sheet. This is our makeshift baking peel.
Oh, I like it.
All right, so I'm just gonna put this up here. Now I wanna take some cornmeal and dust the surface here. Add some nice texture to the bottom of the bread. We're going to move this bread onto our baking sheet. So now we're going to cut little slits into the bread, and this is where we get a lot more crust because now we have more edge. So we're gonna start about 1.5 inches from one of the edges. I'll just cut right down the middle, up to about 1.5 inches from the other side. Now, we chose a pizza wheel or a pizza cutter because it was just so much easier than using a knife or a pair of scissors. So now we're going to make a series of veins off of the center vein. So I'm going to use this. Now, you don't want to cut into the center vein again. You don't want to cut on the outside.
Ah.
It just looks like a torn leaf.
Yeah.
I'm going to start about 1/3 way down from this middle vein here, and I'm going to make my first cut pretty close to parallel. It's not quite perpendicular to that first cut. And on the other side. All right, so about another 1/3 of the way down, we're going to make another cut, and now I'm just angling it a little bit more. And then on the other side. And then at the bottom, you're gonna open it up just a little bit more. This is really where it starts to take shape. We're going to stretch and pull this until the leaf shape really starts to open. We want to see some space in between these slits. All right, so now we're gonna leave these alone. We want them to sit for another 30 to 45 minutes. Let them proof, get nice and bubbly, and start to rise. They should be about doubled in size. But we do need to put a piece of plastic. We've gone ahead and sprayed it with vegetable oil spray, and then we can start to bake. All right, it's been about 45 minutes.
That is a fun-shaped bread.
Gorgeous bread, isn't it? All right, so it's about ready for the oven. We need to do one more thing, and that is coat this with some seasonings, but first, extra virgin olive oil. You have 2 tablespoons. I have 2 tablespoons. You want to get it on the top, the sides, into those little fissures everywhere.
Okay. Every inch is coated.
It's true. All right, so now we're going to add some seasonings. Rosemary is perfect here. This is a tablespoon of minced rosemary. So I'm going to sprinkle about half on each one of them. So about 1.5 teaspoons per loaf.
And you definitely want to use fresh rosemary here, not dried.
And now sea salt. Now this is a coarse salt. These are sea salt flakes. We love the texture of this. It's going to add some nice crunch on top of the bread. So this is 2 teaspoons total, so 1 teaspoon per loaf. All right, so these are going to go into the oven. These are actually going to go into 2 ovens. I've set up 2 identical ovens for each of us. So these are going to go into the oven set to 450 degrees until they're nice and golden brown. That's going to take about 18, maybe 22 minutes, and halfway through, we'll rotate each of these.
Okay.
Now we're going to keep these on the parchment and just slide it right on. The pizza stone is essential for a nice bottom crust. All right. Ooh, thank you.
Beautiful.
They're gorgeous. Now, these have got to rest for 15 minutes, cool down just a little bit, then we'll eat.
Okay.
15 minutes.
These look terrible.
They do. They're awful. No one should eat them but us, right?
Exactly.
All right, so this is the one that you made, and I'm going to put it here between these other two shapes. We're going to save this for a little later on. Isn't that gorgeous?
Well, look at these other shapes. This is that sand dollar that you talked about, and that's the ladder.
The ladder, yeah. I'd like to climb that ladder.
So in addition to other shapes, there's a few other flavor variations in addition to the rosemary and salt we have here. You can find those on our website.
No knife. This is all about the crust with that chewy interior. You don't want to slice it. You want to tear it open.
I do.
Then you go first.
Oh, I'm going to go on this end.
Nice.
Oh,
Oh, yeah.
Look at that nice uneven texture in the crumb. It is like the best crust of a pizza I've ever had. It's crunchy on the outside, but the inside has flavor and it's chewy. Then you get a little of that olive oil and the rosemary and the salt.
Yeah, there's some good tug in there, nice texture inside here. And what I like about it is it's still moist inside. I love this little bit of cornmeal on the bottom too. Just even more crunch.
Bridget, this is amazing. Thank you.
Thank you.
So if you want to make this classic French bread, start by sifting whole wheat flour before combining it with all-purpose flour. Knead the dough on low speed for just 5 minutes, then let it rest on the counter for 2 hours, stopping to fold it every half hour. Let the dough rise slowly in the refrigerator, then shape and slash into that iconic looking loaf. Before baking, top with olive oil, rosemary, and coarse salt. From America's test kitchen to your kitchen, an authentic recipe for Fougasse. Delicious. Thanks for watching America's Test Kitchen. What'd you think?
Well, leave a comment and let us know which recipes you're excited to make, or you can just say hello.
You can find links to today's recipes and reviews in the video description.
And don't forget to subscribe to our channel.
See you later.
I'll see you later.